Okay, we are recording right now.
You're listening to eLearnChat, where talk is knowledge.
Hello and welcome to eLearnChat, our new podcast featuring prominent leaders, shakers and movers in the e-learning and training industry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rick Zanotti, and next to me is Coline Lee. How are you, Coline?
I'm doing great, Rick. How are you?
I am good, and welcome to episode number 51 of eLearnChat. Well, today we have a special guest coming from a very faraway country. And it's a country I know pretty well. I was actually born in that same country. We have with us today Mayra Aixa Villar from Mendoza, Argentina. Hi, Mayra. How are you?
Hello, Rick. How are you doing?
We're doing good. Yes, that's our virtual audience. Anyway, Mayra is from Mendoza, Argentina, which is really close to right at the base of the Andes, pretty south in Argentina. But she doesn't limit herself to Argentina. She's working with a lot of different people. You're working in kind of a worldwide standards organization right now, correct?
Exactly. I really love those opportunities when I have the opportunity to talk with people from different countries, to share ideas and perspectives. I think that it's a great source of learning and inspiration when you have the opportunity to interact with people from different nationalities, different backgrounds, different experiences.
Yeah. Now, today you're going to be talking about linguistics, the role of linguistics in e-learning. This is something that a lot of people really don't consider or keep in mind, but what is the role of linguistics in e-learning?
Well, I think that both disciplines are very related. They can both complement each other and nurture from each other. And for example, when I started to work as an English teacher, I realized that I really wanted to learn something else. And I was very interested in technology and research. So I enrolled in this master program on applied linguistics. And when I had to choose the topic for my dissertation, I found out that within applied linguistics, there is a subfield called computer-assisted language learning, which combines the best of technology to teach languages. So it seems so suitable for me at that moment. And for example, one of the premises of computer-assisted language learning is that the students of a second language need to be exposed to real situations and meaningful context and authentic material of the language they are studying. And I think that e-learning is the right tool to provide those conditions. Yes, for example, imagine Spanish students who can take a virtual tour where they can practice basic expressions they have learned, and they can practice those expressions immersed in situations that can simulate the same situations they are going to experience when they actually visit a Spanish-speaking country. The same happens with students who are studying English or any other language in the world.
That's good. Now, how specifically do you see the relationship between, for example, regular e-learning, not just language learning, but e-learning and the role of linguistics? Because obviously linguistics ties into the way we process information, the way we understand language, the way we use language. What do you see as the major role of linguistics with e-learning? I'm just curious because, like I said, it's not something that a lot of people consider. They think about it sometimes, but on the whole, it's not something that people apply, if you will. At least they don't apply it consciously. They may apply it subconsciously, but I'm just curious as to, where you would take linguistics in terms of e-learning, aside from language learning.
Well, for example, you can extract information, linguistic information like key terms and keywords with annotation tools to build up ontologies and glossaries for your e-learning courses. And you do that from a corpus of text for a specific discipline. So when you identify key terms and key structures, you can build up very useful and interesting and relevant glossaries for your e-learning courses according to the discipline you are working with. And the field that works specifically with this type of activities is called natural language processing within computational linguistics.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, one of the things I like to do when we do e-learning courses is when we have text captions is to highlight maybe 2 or 3 of the words. Maybe those words would be bolded. And that kind of goes back to neurolinguistic programming. Again, we're talking linguistics and how it affects our mental processes. But if people see 40 or 50 words on a screen, but 3 words are highlighted, then what happens is those words somehow become more prominent, and those words trigger either memory or trigger a response in the learner that later on they might remember. Are you familiar with that technique?
Yes, exactly. That's also part of natural language processing. And with annotation tools, you can identify the frequency of the words, the most common words within a specific type of text or a specific discipline. So that's very useful when you want to highlight the most important words and vocabulary for a specific field. Okay.
Yeah. So as a result, by
Exactly.
doing that, you're constantly making the memory or the brain more conscious of those words.
Exactly. You can pay more attention to the instructions you are going to deliver as well, because you highlight these types of words. And also when you need to highlight, when you have a lot of text and you want to highlight the most important part of that, that technique is also useful.
Okay. Colleen, anyone in the chat room yet?
Yeah, I just want to say hi, good morning, good evening to, there's Dawn. Dawn showed up, Leva showed up in the chat room, and Trisha from Polycom Learning. So
Trisha.
we have 3 guests right now. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to eLearnChat.
Any comments yet?
I think they're just listening, taking it all in. So I don't have any comments right now or any questions as of yet from those in the chat room.
Okay. Now, Mayra, what made you interested in linguistics? You were an English teacher. Excuse me. You were an English teacher, but what made you get more interested in linguistics as far as technology?
Well, as I told you, during my first years of university, I studied to become an English teacher. And then I started to work in some institutions here in Argentina and companies as well. And but then I realized that I was very interested in technology and research as well. And these master programs offered to me the possibility of continue studying and researching. And I'm also very fond of linguistics because my father is a writer. So I always love reading and writing next to him. And I think that linguistics has been part of my life since I was very, very small. And within linguistics, I found computer-assisted language learning, and I realized that I could use what I have learned during my first years of university and enhance that knowledge and use technology to enhance my practices, my teaching practices as well.
Yeah. Now, one of the largest language learning online systems is Rosetta Stone in the U.S. and I don't know if other parts of the world. I think they're international. But Rosetta Stone is interesting because they take a very similar approach to what Berlitz used to do, which is they show pictures, they show photos, and you repeat things and then eventually build from very small words into bigger sentences, and eventually you start understanding. Now, years ago, this is a long time ago, back in the late 70s, I taught English at Berlitz in Argentina for about a year. And it was very interesting because I always thought that method was very good but not as effective for older people because older people just learn a little bit differently. The method was you would show a picture and say, a book, and the person would say, a book. And then you would say, is this a book? And you would prompt them to say, yes, this is a book. But that's how kids learn. That's how children learn as they're learning. But I found for adults, it didn't seem to work as well. It worked for some, but it didn't work for all the adults. And what have some of your experiences been with language learning and the effectiveness of computer-based language learning?
Well, first of all, you cannot use a method in general terms. I think that first of all, you need to carry out some how a systemic needs analysis of the educational needs of that specific group or student. And as I told you, e-learning can give the opportunity to explore more than traditional classroom activities or materials do. Okay, because you can help the students to be in contact with authentic material, and your role as a instructor or as a teacher is to facilitate the interaction with that authentic material. Now, for example, in my thesis, I'm working with online tutoring sites, extracting linguistic information, and then I'm going to use that information to develop learning activities for a writing coursework. And with that idea, I'm trying to help the students throughout the writing process. Because if you were an English teacher, you realize that sometimes the activities that we find in the ESL material is like, okay, read this text, and second activity is write a similar one, and the students cannot do that. So with technology, we can leverage the process, and we can help the students to reach a higher level of knowledge and understanding of the language. And we can use we can do this through a virtual tour, through interactive activities, letting them search for new vocabulary in different online repositories.
What do you think about the inclusion of video in that kind of training?
Well, I always think that videos and every other activity needs to have a purpose. So first of all, you need to state the purpose of the activity, and then you can include a short video and ask the students to respond to that video. Just not watch and answer questions, some kind of more interactive way of acquiring the language, mm-hmm. or working with the language that is expressed in that video.
I have a question, Rick, for Mayra. Now, Mayra, you mentioned that you did quite, you were interested in this form of training or learning, actually, because of the technology. Do you actually do the instructional design yourself, or are you just more involved with the research side of it, the linguistic side of it?
Well, I've started researching, and then I applied all this knowledge and techniques since last year when I started to design courses, online courses, to teach people here how to speak in English.
I think we're having a Skype issue.
Do you think there's a little bit of a delay, Rick?
Yeah. Mayra, can you hear us?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, we lost the last part of what you said. It went away.
Oh, okay. I'm going to repeat that. I started as a researcher, as an independent researcher for my university. And then last year, I started to use the knowledge and the techniques and the skills I have acquired through research by developing and designing courses for Spanish speakers who wanted to learn English.
I think it happened
so,
again.
With that, do you use a lot of adult learning principles do you incorporate any of these adult learning principles? Because you're talking about a university-based course or university-based courses, so there are adult learners present. So you consider adult learning principles when you design?
Absolutely, absolutely. The first thing I do is to carry out needs analysis to identify the gaps and the characteristics of these adult learners. And then I try to bear in mind how they learn and what they need for their context and for their job.
Okay, so for example, in your university, do you teach more business-oriented classes or just English as a second language type of thing?
No, for my university, I'm an independent researcher.
Okay.
And then I have been developing courses for private companies here in Argentina. And the courses I have been developing are targeted to the public, yes, not business related.
Okay.
Adults in general, I think.
Okay, so there's no emphasis on particular emphasis on like business language or commercial type language, just English competency.
Not the ones I have developed for private companies, but I'm working with online tourist guides for my thesis because tourism is a great industry for my province. It promotes economical growth. So when I decided the topic for my thesis, I decided that I also wanted to contribute to the development of my province. So when I finished my thesis and when I finished my writing coursework, my idea is to give it to the government for the government to train people who works in this field.
Now, one of the things that most people don't know, where Mayra is, Mendoza is one of the top wine growers or makers in the world. If anybody has ever had Malbec wine, that's a very famous wine from Mendoza, and that is one of the more famous things that Mendoza does. So just an interesting...
Absolutely. I'm a fan of Malbec wine.
Okay, so you know, that is where she lives. Good place.
And I was about to tell today we are starting autumn, and this is the season where Mendoza gets really beautiful. So you're kindly winter time.
I have a question in the chat room, Rick, and Trisha would like to know if there is a way to check the similarity of a word pronounced by a user with the correct pronunciation. So that would be for you, Mayra.
You mean if somebody has a microphone and they say a word?
Yeah, I think from the way the question is stated, based on, I guess, the instructional design, if there's a way for people to verify pronunciation.
Well, if I can answer that, what some of the software is doing right now is you talk into a microphone, you say a word, the microphone checks the pattern of that word, the WAV file, against what it has in its database of what the word should sound like. And then based on that approximation, it knows if you said it almost correctly or incorrectly, and you can get feedback that way. It's not perfect, but based on just waveforms, it's pretty close to approximating what you said. So that is actually one way to do it. And that could be done right now with, if you look at things like Dragon, Naturally Speaking, and Rosetta Stone, they all have things like that where you say words. You train, to a certain point, it trains you and you train it as far as software goes. So I don't know if that answers the question a little bit. And Mayra, do you have anything on that?
Yes, those systems are called systems of voice recognition, and but it's difficult for students who are learning a second language to sometimes to reach the exact pattern of the pronunciation. So there is no an accurate way of teaching pronunciation. Yeah.
And the hardest part for the computer is because of accents, because of regional intonations, things like that. It's really hard for the computer to exactly understand you unless there's a little bit of training. Now, surprisingly enough, if you have an iPhone 4S, it has something called Siri on it. And I find Siri pretty amazing in terms of how well it recognizes voice, or at least how well it recognizes a voice that's clear. If you pronounce correctly, if you pronounce clearly, it actually understands most of what you're saying in a natural language way. You don't have to specifically give it an instruction. It's almost conversational. Not quite, but it's getting pretty close. Now, Colleen, you have Siri. Have you played with it at all?
Yes, I have. Before I get into Siri, the last question was from Leva. She actually was asking about the question about the pronunciation, so I wanted to make that correction. I apologize. And I do have Siri, and she confuses me sometimes. She says, "I do not understand what you're saying." So I think it has to do with that I have a little bit of an accent still, and she gets,
I don't know. You're pretty
I don't know,
clear. I don't
thrown
know.
off a bit.
You're pretty clear when you talk, so I don't know if that's problem. Maybe. Well, it's hard. Siri sometimes it's just the way you say something. Maybe the pattern of voices or the pattern of the sentence is a little off for it. I'm not sure. I find it's pretty responsive. I can say something like, schedule an appointment with Mayra at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning via conference call. And it'll schedule it in my Outlook perfectly, which is amazing. I use that. I rarely type appointments in anymore. Ever since I got three.
But to some extent, yes.
Myra, you were saying?
Yes, and they know that they are not as accurate as a real instructor. Yes, that's something that technology cannot outdo. Yes.
Right. I think Skype is catching up with you right now. Because I see your mouth moving, but I don't hear the words.
Okay, I was saying that to some extent this sort of voice recognition systems are effective, but that's something that technology cannot still do.
Oh, I think we just lost Myra.
Yeah, I think we did.
Let me see if I can get her back. Let's try calling her back.
So you don't have any problems with Siri, Rick?
No, I actually love Siri. We're
I
actually
bought the iPhone 4S because of Siri. Well, that was my biggest incentive. And now I use it. I've used it twice maybe.
Okay, we almost have her back. Let's see if Myra, can you hear us? Hi.
Yes.
Hello?
I don't know what happened.
I think.
Can you listen to me? I can listen to you perfectly.
Lost her again. Hold on.
I still see her on.
No,
she's
gone. That's just us. Let me try getting her back in. I think she said she had a problem before the show, and it could be Skype is just having an issue. Hi, Myra. Sorry.
Hello. No, it's okay. It's okay.
Skype is... There we go. Okay, let's see if Skype cooperates. Let me get you back. Okay, there you go. Every so often Skype just doesn't cooperate. And when you think about it, it's going through so many thousands of miles of connections.
I think that
we can hear you now. I think we can hear you.
I think that computers got angry. Okay.
Yeah, we're not hearing. I hear.
I think that computers just got angry because we were criticizing them. Can you listen to me?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
we
heard
can
you.
hear you. Siri probably planted a bug.
But don't talk too loudly. The computer might hear you.
Yes, they are getting angry because they were criticizing them for not recognizing accents.
We were talking a little bit about Siri when we lost you, and Colleen has some problems that the Siri doesn't necessarily like her, or she doesn't like Siri. I'm not sure which, but I'm finding that Siri is pretty accurate. It picks up pretty much everything I tell it to do. I haven't had too many problems. And I bought a book on Siri on how to talk to it, which gives you just ideas of. I was talking okay with it, but I didn't realize I could say so much more to it. So we're dating right now. We're going to get engaged in the future, and we'll see how that relationship goes. But right now, I'm really enjoying Siri.
You know, since we're on this this topic, Rick, I use Google Voice to receive my voicemails, and what that does is there's this option where it can translate the audio of the message into text, and whenever someone with a United States or a U.S. accent calls, it gets pretty much in the translation about 90 to 95% of the words correct. It's actually funny to see when you actually listen to the voicemail and you follow along with the transcription what some of the words are. And I think the only time that I've ever gotten a message where it was transcribed exactly as what the person said was someone calling from the Midwest.
From the Midwest?
So I think that Midwest accent is probably the benchmark for the United States accent or for transcription type software. Whenever someone calls from my home country, from Trinidad, or one of my family members, they say unable to transcribe, and they're actually speaking English as well. So
is that
I
why
don't
we
know
never
if
understand?
Siri will work in Trinidad.
So is that why we never understand you? It's because you're from Trinidad?
That's exactly why.
Now I understand.
Yeah.
Actually, you speak very clearly, so I'm surprised Siri doesn't understand you.
Well, I don't know.
Now
I don't really have a lot of
supposed
patience
to.
for stuff like that.
Now you're not
If it
supposed to.
doesn't work right the first couple of times, I don't use it anymore.
Now you're not supposed to scream at Siri. You know that. She's sensitive.
She is.
Yeah. Mayra, there's one other thing. You and I were talking last week. Mayra just got a job at kind of an international standards organization. And do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because it is interesting, some of the things that are being done overseas, and I'm sure people from the U.S. are involved and just everything else. Mayra, tell us a little bit about your new job.
Okay, I'm very happy with that opportunity. I'm excited about that, and I'm part of the learning agency network now, Laneto, and I'm going to be the national partner for Argentina and the representative for Latin America. And Laneto is an international organization that seeks to provide e-learning solutions, customized e-learning solutions. But what is different about Laneto is that we try to provide an integrative solution, a holistic approach to e-learning. So we start with a systemic needs analysis, and then we plan different programs with long-term objectives to accompany an organization throughout the learning process to improve knowledge management, organizational learning, talent management. So pretty interesting and very useful indeed, I think.
Now, this organization, it's headquartered out of where?
Brussels.
Brussels. Okay, Belgium.
Brussels, Belgium.
Leva, are you familiar with that? Actually, Leva's in the chat room?
in the chat room.
Is she familiar with the Learning Agency Network? Leva is in Belgium.
See. I don't see any response from her.
Okay.
And today, Laneto is launching the first international quality label for e-learning, eProvate, it's called. So best wishes for my colleagues in Brussels, because today is the official launch of this label.
Now, what is the exact object of, let's say, creating a standard for e-learning? Because it's hard to standardize training because there's so many different kinds of training.
Well, the idea of eProvade is to reach a consensus about quality in our field, but at the international level. So more than providing a quality label, the idea is to reach this kind of agreement and to start maybe paving the way to reach some standards. Because I have been reading some articles lately, and then the urgent need of standards and theoretical background for e-learning and instructional design are very important.
Okay. Now, when you say standards, what kind of standards?
Well, the idea for eProvade is to evaluate courses from the perspective of the students. In fact, we are going to consider the perspective of all the stakeholders, but mainly we are going to concentrate on the perspective of the user. And the idea is to evaluate the course following a quality grid that encompasses 11 criteria. And these criteria fall into 4 categories: pedagogy, content, course design, and media design. And we are not evaluating teaching process, but we are trying to complement those processes that already exist in the organizations or companies.
So in other words, training should follow a certain set of standard processes in terms of the way it's created or defined. Is this at the end level of the training, or also through the whole development process?
The idea is that an e-learning producer contact us and provide us with one of his or her coursework to evaluate. And once the coursework is already developed, we follow this quality grid to evaluate the courses and to give a formative feedback to the e-learning producer as regards the quality of the course.
Now I see that as was that Coline? Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was Leva. She would like to know where in Brussels this organization is located.
Sorry?
Where in Brussels are you is the organization you'll be partnering with? Where are they located? We have someone here in the chat room that's in Belgium, and they were wondering where the organization was located.
Leva is a professor in Belgium right now.
Okay. If she needs the exact address and the contact information, I can send her a DM through Twitter.
Okay.
Yes.
And her
I'm
Twitter.
also,
You might have seen her on Twitter, but it's Lily LILYBIRI. Lily Berry.
Yes. Yes, I know her.
Okay.
And I'm also going to post today with this video some information on that. So.
Okay, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mayra, we wish you the best of luck in your new endeavor. And it's already about 35, 40 minutes into the show. So we're going to say goodbye for now and hope to have you on in the future, maybe giving us updates on what you're doing. And I'm actually very interested or curious about the standards and how that's all going to turn out. Because there's so many subjective parts of a standard. I'm curious how that'll work out. And also we wish you luck in that, and also in your doctorate when you with the with linguistics. So that should be very interesting.
Yeah, and I would just like to thank everyone who participated in the chat room, Dawn and Leva and Trisha from Polycom Learning. Thank you guys very much for joining us again this week, and best of luck to you, Mayra.
Okay, thank you. It's been my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to share my views and my experience.
No, our pleasure. So everyone in the chat room, again, thank you, and we will see you all next week on eLearnChat. Next week, we have Bill Couchard, who's been on the show before. He's going to come on again talking about a new book he's coming out with, and as well as performance in e-learning. So Mayra, thanks a lot for being here again today, and Coline, we will see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.